So let's move on to our next speaker, inshallah. He has been dubbed the black belt of da'wah. With decades of experience in the da'wah scene, he combines his groundbreaking teaching style with his own dash of humor, certain to leave students feel at ease and entertained, but above all else, skilled and empowered. He is known best for his workshop, How to Give Shahada in 10 Minutes, a 6-hour workshop designed to empower Muslims in the art of da'wah. His lectures and online videos have also gained popular fame and positive impact among Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Educated at the hands of numerous prominent Islamic scholars from across the world, he also has dynamic experience in the secular world. His focus will be on the topic of bullying. More specifically, how to respond proactively to criticism as a Muslim. Please help me in welcoming the very witty, the very funny Sheikh Kamal al-Mekki.
آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت لا إله إلا.
Thank you very much. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Let's start things off a little awkward, shall we? I was asked to make an awkward announcement. This announcement is a request from the sisters, actually. And I guess I'm the right person to make this announcement anyways. So the sisters are requesting that brothers lower their gaze a little bit better during this conference. Now I understand the situation. Some people are here for different intentions. A lot of single brothers trying to get married and stuff. These are the brothers that I call, they're at their peak performance. Because you know when you get engaged, you're allowed to peek at the woman, right? So the brother's peeking over here, and he's peeking over there, and he's peeking, they're at their peak performance. So tone it down, and this is the request from the sisters. Jazakumullah khairan. Okay. So the lecture is entitled The Comeback, and it's about bullying. And the organizers of this conference, they wanted different things from this lecture. Some specifically wanted me to deal with school bullying, and others wanted bullying on a larger scale, like when you bully a minority or an ethnicity or a religious group. And inshallah Azza wa Jal, we can satisfy both groups, because both types of bullying, they have some common underlying traits. It is sad that there's not a single person in this room except that they've been bullied in one way or another. Some of us were never bullied in school. And it's sad that after becoming grown men and women, adults, then other adults want to bully us. Now isn't that sad? So domestic abuse, when it comes to women, that's a form of bullying. If you've been harassed at the airport for being a Muslim, you've been bullied because you're Muslim. In the United States, this is very common. And the problem is we accept it. So we're always pulled aside for random security checks. Sometimes, like if I travel a lot, I'll get 3 random checks in one day. Now, they can't all be random. I mean, just, khalas, don't insult my intelligence. Just call them Muslim checks, right? No, it's fine with me. Just don't lie to me, you know? So that's a form of bullying. Muslim women, they're bullied by Muslim men. True or false? Women in general are bullied by men. Women in the West in general, they're bullied by men in many, many different ways. So much so that they're made to believe that they're inferior to the man. So if a woman does something one way, and if a man does something in another way, whether it's communication or dealing with issues, or emotional versus not emotional, if a man deals with something one way and a woman deals with it differently, they immediately assume that the man's way is better. And this is very sad, and this has even crept into the minds of Muslim women as well. So if the man does something, that means that's probably the better way. Why can't we do what the man does? Type. Who said that the man is a role model for women? Wallahi, there's no such thing. Yani for Muslim women, you have other great Muslim women as your role models. Who said that the male today is your role model? Absolutely nobody. But society gets you to believe that. So you want to do things like the man, the way the man does it. And this has manifested into different forms of movements. Some of these movements have made it so that basically life is a war between men and women. It's a battle of the sexes. And sisters, I'm here to tell you right now, there is no war between men and women. We won. That was a joke. See, some people are not happy about that. So the truth is, yes, there is no war between men and women. So a Muslim woman will come and ask you, why can't a woman marry four in Islam? It's a very shameful question, very disgusting question. Are you serious? You want to know that? So you assume because the man can do it, you have to be able to do it? Yeah, but for you, it's insulting in this case. So you don't have to ask a question like that. If you took 1 minute to think about it, so you want to cook and clean for 4 men, have children for 4 men, what is, it's not a respectable or honorable position whatsoever. So why do women pray in the back of the masjid and men pray in the front? Type. Who on earth told you that it's degrading to pray in the back? I want to meet this guy. Who made this rule? Who put this into your minds that if you pray in the back, it's degrading? Many masajid, you find this an issue. Why should we be in the back? Use your brain now. You want to be in the front? Yeah, how much khushu' will be from the men now? They'll be fighting to get in the front row. Yes, brothers? Brothers will be beyond their peak performance. Everybody wants to be in the front row. Brothers, there's not enough room in the front. No, inshallah, no, tighten the rows. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, tighten the rows. Aren't you sweet? So who put this idea into our heads that the man, whatever the man does is superior to the woman? Why can't the Muslim woman give a khutbah? Would that make you a better person? So if Muslim woman can give khutbah, why isn't there a female prophet ever sent? طيب. First of all, just a little bit of logical thought, you'll see why. It's clear. But if right now, 2,000 years ago, there had been a female prophet, would you be a better person sitting here right now? Are you any less of a great person right now? Are you less honored right now sitting here because there wasn't a prophet that was a female 2,000 years ago? No. But who puts these ideas into our head? Bullying, that's what it is, a different form of bullying. It's not just about taking your lunch money and stuffing you in a locker. No, they've virtually taken our lunch money and virtually stuffed us into a locker. So the easiest way to bully people is to reevaluate how they see themselves. That's the easiest way to bully people. That's why women who suffer from domestic abuse, it takes them about 12 to 18 years to finally get out of the relationship. 12 to 18 years? I know what we think. We think that the minute the woman is struck the first time, she takes her things, she leaves. That's what we would all like. But it takes them from 12 to 18 years. They remain in an abusive relationship. If it's verbally abusive or if it's physically abusive. 12 to 18 years? Yes. Because a lot of times, they've been destroyed verbally. The man destroys them. And he gets them to accept that position. They tell you that when they talk to a lot of women who are in these abusive relationships, the woman blames herself when the man hits her. It was my fault, I didn't prepare the food in time. No, it's not your fault, but this is bullying. And in America, and I can pick on America, we'll leave Canada alone. In America, we have a history of bullying minorities, bullying ethnicities, bullying different groups of people. This is the history of America. There's always got to be a group that we're bullying, that we're harassing or manhandling in one way or another. So, beginning with the Native Americans, so we came, and the people came into their land and kept pushing them further and further west, and they put them on reservations. Even though the Native Americans are very peaceful people, and they're one with nature and with the animals, but they portrayed them as savages and referred to them as savages, and then treated them in a very savage way. But they're the savages, right? Then women, they had a tough time as well in America, and it was only until 1920 that women were allowed to vote. And just for your information, the Native Americans, it wasn't until 1924, and in some states until 1954. How recent is that? They were not allowed to vote. In the UK, 1928, women were allowed to vote. In New Zealand, it was 1893, 1902 in Australia. And just all of them are just recent, not a long time ago. So domestic abuse, like we said, that's a way of bullying women. And the numbers are incredible. So in the United States, every 15 seconds, a woman is beaten by her husband in America. Every 15 seconds. Since we've started this lecture, Allah knows how many women were beaten by their husbands. And these are problems. These are major, major issues. So we have these problems still in America right now. Bullying still goes on in America right now. Then came the African Americans, and they were brought into the Americas as early as the 1600s. And just recently, and they were still told to sit in the back of the bus, still mistreated. And until today, of course, racism exists in one form or another. The Chinese and the Japanese also were a group that was treated or mistreated in the United States. In 1882, they had something called the Chinese Exclusion Act, which basically did not allow any Chinese people to immigrate into the United States. And it's interesting that the Chinese have been in America for a very long time. Just between 1854 and 1882, there were about 300,000 Chinese men and women that came and immigrated to America. And part of that was part of the gold rush, the building the transcontinental railroad, and so on and so forth. So some of them have been there since the 1850s. And today, a descendant of that person might be asked by a white person, "Well, you speak English very well. Where are you from?" Maybe this guy has German descent. His ancestors just came 50, 60 years ago to the United States. And this person, his ancestors have been there for 100 years, but he'll come and ask him, "You know, you speak very good English. When did you come to America?" Yeah? Maybe my ancestors came 60 years before yours, and you have the audacity to ask me where I'm from. And in 1941, the Japanese, they were basically gathered up for their own safety, and they were put in in camps, basically. And it took the government 50 years to apologize. 50 years later, they apologized to them. So this is the history of America. There's always a group that's bullied. And now, of course, the new group that will be bullied would be the Muslims, right? So one of the civil rights leaders in America, he said, "The Muslims are now the new Negroes." So congratulations to all of you. You are now all Negroes. Have fun. I took a course one time in media criticism, which is kind of like my field of study. And the professor was saying, if you look at Hollywood movies up to like a recent date, the bad guys always had what kind of accent in Hollywood movies before 9/11? German accents, right? And Russian accents. It's always a Russian or a German bad guy. Even if they're not Russian or German, they have that type of accent. And so many movies, if you think in your mind, have the bad guy speaks with a German accent or a Russian accent. Now, then the professor says, now notice from this point onwards, because this was after 9/11. He said, notice from this point onwards, bad guys will have an Arab accent. How many movies now, the bad guy is an Arab? Well, one time I'm just sitting in the living room working on my laptop, and the television was on. Someone else was watching TV, and there was a shootout happening. And from behind the wall, the guy shooting was speaking to the agent. And they were negotiating like his basically surrender agreement. So basically, the guy had an Arab accent. So I looked up to see if this is an Arab, and it was an African. He was an African, but they gave him a Middle Eastern accent, because now the Arab is the new bad guy. So the way now is to beat the Muslim into submission. So they don't open their mouth, and they accept being bullied. And they don't stand up for their civil rights. So they want to change the way we see ourselves. And speaking of accents, by the way, I'll tell you an interesting story. After 9/11, like immediately after 9/11, I was working at this building, office building in Washington, D.C. And you know, the Pentagon got hit, and it's not far from Washington, D.C. So one time, the head of security comes to the building, and there's this white guy, and he comes into our office because people know that there's some Arabs or something like that in this room, hijab and beards and stuff. So the head of security comes, important guy. He's like, does anybody here speak Islamic? So I said, there's no such language as Islamic. Do you mean Arabic? So he felt stupid. He's like, well, I don't know what language it is, but basically what happened was some guy made a call. He's trying to call his friend, and he dialed the wrong number, and it went into the voicemail of this lady, in the same building. So she found this voicemail in Arabic, and she thought maybe she intercepted some dangerous terrorist communique. So she called head of security. Head of security came to us for translation purposes. So I went with them. I went to that office and everyone was standing all serious. Okay, the translator is here. Well, let's see what we intercepted here. Maybe this is the next 9/11, This is 1822, discovered right here. So I go in, and the lady's like standing there, and come this way. And they went to the phone, they played it. Here's a message in English. Just the guy had a bad African accent, that's all. He was lost, and he called his friend. He's saying, I am standing right here at 5th Avenue and 5th Street, and I don't know where to go. And they thought this was Arabic. I should have just told the guy, well, actually, this message is in Christian. It's not in Islamic. So, word association. I'm going to say a word, and you tell me which religion or belief system immediately comes to your head. So if I say meditation, okay, Buddhism, you think of something Far Eastern, right? If I say love, Christianity immediately comes into your head. And if I say terrorism, it's painful, isn't it? It hurts, right? It hurts that we're Muslims and we know there is no terrorism in Islam. We know it's a religion of peace, but when someone says terrorism, we think immediately Islam. So who put that association in our minds? You know the answer, right? So, and it's strange that we have love in Islam. It's not like some other religion hijacked love and we were just left with hate and killing. And we have love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-muhib, the loving. He's al-wadud also, the loving. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, yeah? But we don't even talk about that anymore. Over every khutbah, tough stuff. The minute you start speaking about caring for people, people think, well, he's gone soft, I think. Is he okay? Yeah, you give a lecture, you talk about caring. Are we not supposed to care for people, Muslims? We have a responsibility. We have a message to give to people. What drives us to give that message? We care for people. We can hate kufr, but we can care for people. The minute you say that, I think he's gone soft. I think he's gone soft. Something happened to him. He's changing. The minute you say that, no, this is part of our religion. The Prophet ﷺ cared for people so much that the grief almost killed him. That's what Allah tells him in Surah Al-Kahf, verse 6. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. Perhaps you would kill yourself in grief over their footsteps. They're turning away. What does it mean? Turning away from you, not accepting this message. You're going to kill yourself with the grief that you feel when they turn away from you. Prophet ﷺ cared so much. He was offered to crush Mecca between the two mountains. He refused. Why? Because he cared. If he didn't care, he would say, crush them. I know what I would have said. Yeah? I'd be like, crush them, and please do that thing you did to the people of Lut. Pick them up and bring them down again. Let's have some rain, some hail, some hell rain down on them. Let's do some of that, please. Jazakallah khair. I want to watch all this from the mountaintop. Prophet ﷺ cared, that's why. And we talk about caring like what happened to this guy. La, it's part of our religion to care. Okay. So, we've accepted the idea. So when we're searched at the airport, we accept it. And we just complain about it, But, we accept the idea that we should be searched. Well, people who were behind 9/11, they kind of look like me. They were from my religion. So it makes sense if they want to search me. I accept it. You know what? I don't accept it. I actually went to a lawyer. And you know what he told me? He told me to accept it. Wallahi. And I went to a lawyer and said, look, I don't accept this. And he says, no, basically after a long-winded conversation, he said, you have to accept it. I said, I don't want to hear that from you, that I have to accept it. And he began by saying, just so you know, I know you're coming to me for help with this issue of being harassed at the airport, but I also get stopped for many, many hours when I come into the United States, and I know you don't want to hear that. Like, yeah, you're right, I don't want to hear that. I'm hoping you can help with this problem. You're telling me you have the same problem, and then tell me accept it? Okay. So, and this is how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to apologize, apologize for everything. 9/11, everybody wanted Muslims to apologize. And most Islamic websites haven't had an apology on their website. Most masajid had an apology on their website. You know something? I've never apologized for 9/11, and I'm never going to apologize for 9/11. Why on earth should I apologize? Was I on the airplane or something? Was I flying one of them? Why should I apologize? We've been beaten into submission. So the minute 9/11 is mentioned, I'm supposed to apologize. And this is the accepted role from us now. So if that's how you want to play this game, you want me to apologize, I'm expecting thousands of apologies from you for what you did to my people. Thousands of apologies. You want me to apologize? I didn't do anything so I could apologize. You know something? When the incident of the Danish cartoons came out, people are so used to Muslims apologizing that they wanted me to apologize for the violence. So we had a lecture, it was me and another speaker. The other speaker basically was being apologetic, and I refused to apologize. And the audience was angered, like they want that guy to apologize. Why isn't he apologizing for this? So I'm not apologizing. You want a peaceful life? Don't provoke me. Don't insult me. I can't be responsible for how people react, but people just couldn't take that because they want the apology from the Muslim now. Bend down, they'll beat you on the head. So I'm supposed to feel inferior now. I'm supposed to conform. I'm supposed to listen to what I'm told, melt into the pot. Sure, if I was like you, I would melt into the pot. If I didn't have Islam, I would melt into the pot. But I can never feel inferior to you because I have izzah. Izzah is the feeling of dignity and honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us Muslims. How can you expect me to lower myself, lower my head? How can you expect me to apologize? Allah honored me with this great religion. Just this phrase, La ilaha illallah, you say it and you will never spend eternity in the hellfire, inshallah. Never. How can someone who is never destined to spend eternity in the hellfire, inshallah, apologize and want to be like people that he knows collectively will spend eternity in the hellfire? It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm not the one who's supposed to conform. I have a responsibility. You know, I have my Prophet ﷺ who informed me of everything that will take me to paradise. And he warned me of everything that will take people to the hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put me on this earth to guide you. You're telling me I should conform? You're telling me I should apologize? You're telling me I should be beaten into submission and do what I'm told? I'm put on this earth to guide you. And by that I mean the Muslims, right? We're put on earth to guide people. Not to cower down, not to lower ourselves. Or not to say that your way is better than my way. No, we have a responsibility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this dignity, gave us this honor. So then the way people see you is equivalent to the way you see yourself. So the question is, how do you see yourself? How do you see yourself? So if you can beat me into submission, sure, you can harass me at the airport and I'll never say a word. You can arrest our leaders, our scholars, our imams, you can arrest our youth and we'll be quiet. And that's what's happening today. People are being framed and the masajid would not do anything. They would not try to help with their funds. They would not even try to help the families of these people who are framed. Young man is arrested. He's got a wife and child. Nobody cares. No one even wants to come near them. They're radioactive all of a sudden. Why? Whatever happened to the fact that you're innocent or presumed innocent until proven guilty? No, the minute now something happens, the word terrorism comes and immediately everyone assumes this guy is radioactive. I'm going to stay away from them. But you think I'm going to get in trouble if I help someone's wife and she's in trouble and we try to help her with the rent? We'll get arrested based on what? But just extreme cowardice gripping our communities. Everyone's afraid. No one's willing to stand up. And this is not how any group in history has secured their civil rights, ever. This is basically when we accept bullying and we accept to be bullied. So we'll get bullied into submission. And like I said, when you look at the history of civil rights, you find every group struggled until they secured their rights. So, izzah, this feeling of dignity and honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us Muslims, it stems from our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the higher position that Allah azza wa jal has given us. And so because Allah placed me in this higher position, I feel the need to contribute to humanity. I feel the need to guide people. I feel the need to contribute to my community. not to hide somewhere. I guide people, I contribute, I fix things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means Allah put us here as leaders. Not as bullies and not as people to be bullied, as leaders to guide humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you are the best nation that was put forth للناس. And we all know what it means when Allah says للناس. For humanity, for people, Muslims and non-Muslims. You are the best nation put forth for everybody, for Muslims and for non-Muslims. This is the best nation ever. And it's good for everybody. Why? Because you enjoin what is good and you forbid what is evil. And you believe in Allah Azza wa Jal. You know, there's a very famous speaker, I'm not going to mention their name, but he actually travels the world and he tells Muslims, it's not, you know, if you live in the West, if you live in Europe, it's not your job to forbid what is evil. Don't. This is their country. If they want to get drunk, let them get drunk. If they want to shoot up on heroin, they should do that. Don't come and give them Islamic laws and try to forbid what's evil in their own country. How could someone say this? How could someone who read this verse say something like that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought us out to rectify the conditions of every group. The khair that comes out of the Muslim affects everybody. How can a speaker get up and say something like this to people? Yeah, if people are getting drunk and they're selling drugs in your street corner, it's their country, leave them alone. And he contradicts himself. In another place, he'll say, it's your country. Which one is it? So you're telling me I should live in a neighborhood where people sell drugs and my kids walk around that street and I should not do anything about it? Is this what this verse says? You know something? Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he died in the year 728 after the Hijrah. And when he died, everyone was affected by his death. Al-Bazzar, he says that when the people heard of the death of Ibn Taymiyyah, not a single person wanted to be, who was in Damascus, didn't want to be at his funeral. So everybody wanted to attend the funeral prayer. So the markets closed down and there were no financial transactions, businesses closed, everything closed. One man died, everything closed. Stores closed, everybody wanted to go to the funeral prayer. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah says there was a train of 60,000 to 100,000 people and 15,000 of them were women and they all joined the funeral procession. Everybody wanted to pray over this man. That's amazing. But that's not the most amazing part that we want from this story. The most amazing part is that a priest came crying because Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah passed away. Why would a Christian priest cry? You know Ibn Taymiyyah, he wrote volumes this big. Okay, this big. Refuting Christianity. You would imagine this priest would be happy. I mean, he destroyed Christianity in these refutations. So they should be happy. So the priest came crying, real tears. So the people asked him, why are you crying? Wouldn't this man be considered an enemy of yours? He says, I'm not crying because of the man himself. I'm crying because all the good he used to do will not be done anymore. This is what we're talking about. This is a believer, and so much khair used to come out of him. And that khair would affect everybody. So much so that when he dies, people from another religion will be saddened because he used to do good in this city. This is a point in time where everybody cared about good happening in the city. And then someone has the audacity to say the Muslims should just back away, not forbid any evil. Beaten into submission. Bullied so much that they accept that position. And it'll take them more than 12 to 18 years to come out of this relationship. So, our source of izzah is Islam. Our source of dignity and honor, it's Islam. And we know the minute we try to find dignity and honor in something else, Allah will disgrace us. And we all know this quote from Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. He says, we were the most disgraced people. Of all people, we were the most disgraced. Allah Azza wa Jal gave us honor with Islam, through Islam. He says, if we try to find honor in anything besides that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disgrace us again. This is the source of our honor. And it's true. Why would we try to find honor in anything else? So you can't bully someone who has izzah, who feels dignity and honor that Allah made him Muslim. You can't bully someone who has strong iman. You know something? Again, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he commented when there were wars between Muslims and non-Muslims, he commented that whenever Muslims were captured by the enemy, if they had strong iman and izzah, they would immediately exchange them for captives from this side, or they would ransom them off. But whenever a Muslim lowered his head, accepted to be pushed around, bossed around, what happened? They kept them as slaves immediately. You know, plow the fields, grow things, construct things. They kept them like that. The minute they see someone with izzah, we don't want them. Immediately. And this is the history of izzah. This is how it works. You have izzah, nobody wants to push you around. And there are certain types of people that accept being pushed around. Malcolm X, rahimahullah, he said that we cannot think of being acceptable to others until we have first proven acceptable to ourselves. It's amazing. And that's exactly how it works. So how do we deal with this issue? One way to deal with this is to stop oppressing one another, to stop oppressing each other, because we do it to ourselves all the time. I'm not talking about countries of origin where our parents are from and back home, as some people say. Yes, there's a lot of oppression happening there. But you know something? So a lot of times we move to the West and we feel that we're far removed from things that happen there. But we do the same things to each other here. We oppress one another here. So we're upset that the non-Muslims fired this lady because she wears hijab. And it makes us so angry. But we do the same thing to our sisters. We do these things in Islamic institutions. So we do it in the masajid as well. We're offended that someone pulled the hijab off a Muslim woman in the street, but we do it. We harass Muslim women. I know a masjid where if a woman goes in niqab, they harass her. Men will harass her. Take it off. It's haram to cover your face. Is it any of your concern? But just because they're cowards, that's why. So we do the same things to each other. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you all know very well, will not change the condition of a people until they change the condition of what's in their heart. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. So the situation won't change. We treat each other well, then it might start to change. But we oppress each other, others oppress us. And, sorry to say this, but at this point we deserve it. We stop harassing one another, other people will stop harassing us. Yeah? We start to value each other, other people will value us. If we don't value ourselves, why would another outside group value us? The Muslim life now, it's so sacred in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. In our minds, it's just a statistic now. We hear in the tens of thousands about Muslims dying. And we're okay with it now. It's okay. So, we're saying that we do this to ourselves with madhahib, he's from that madhab, I'm from this madhab, with ethnicities, with even within the same country, the tribes, he's from this tribe, I'm from the other tribe, the better one, and so on and so forth. And with niqab and hijab, niqabis give dirty looks to hijabis, hijabis give dirty looks to non-hijabis. We do this all the time. So once we rectify that condition, then other things will start to change. So if we oppress each other, and the other outside groups will want to oppress us. The second thing, it's interesting that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Quraysh, they came with many different ways and measures to basically disrupt his da'wah. And it's amazing when you read about the things they used to do to the Prophet ﷺ. This is the amazing part, is that never ever does he turn around once and say, could you leave me alone for a minute, please? So basically, they would, and look at the efforts the Quraysh went through. They would have a person chase the Prophet ﷺ around from place to a place, from tribe to tribe. And every time the Prophet ﷺ wanted to recite Qur'an, they would sing out loud and drown out the voice of the Prophet ﷺ. And not a single narration did he say, could you stop? Could you not sing now while I'm reciting? Could you sing somewhere else? Not once. Okay? Then they would have another ibn al-Harith, he would follow Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ wanted to recite Qur'an to people publicly, he would start to tell stories. He had traveled a lot and he knew a lot of stories. So he would begin telling stories and people would move from the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and come and listen to this man's stories. Again, not a single time do you find the Prophet ﷺ going up to him saying, listen, could you not follow me around, please? I'm just trying to talk to people. Could you not tell your stories while I'm reciting Qur'an? Not once does he say that. An eyewitness says, I saw a handsome young man, meaning a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was walking and trying to talk to tribes, the delegations, different people at the time of Hajj. He said behind him was this big man with 2 braids and he was cross-eyed. He's talking about Abu Jahl, or Abu Lahab, sorry. He's talking about Abu Lahab. He said every time the young man, the Prophet ﷺ, would try to speak to a group of people, this man behind him, Abu Lahab, would interrupt and say, don't listen to him. I know him very well. Okay? He's my relative and he's a liar. And he's known to be a liar, don't listen to him. And the Prophet ﷺ never once turns around and tells him, could you please leave me, could you not call me a liar? You know very well I'm not a liar. You know, even you used to call me the trustworthy one. Not once does he do that. So perhaps one of the wisdoms behind that is that when you show the bully that the techniques are working, that they're annoying you, that they're affecting you, they continue doing it. And when you remain quiet and you remain patient, طبعا, this is now, find a good comparison to this in this life. We're not saying, and in our times, we're not saying that's all we have to do is ignore all the time. But sometimes there are just these little tactics that are just really, you could just ignore them and they would stop. And that's why in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, all these techniques were for a short period of time. The singing, the stories, calling him Allah, it was for a short period of time. When they didn't see it working and agitating the Prophet ﷺ, guess what? They stopped and they moved on to another tactic, another technique. And it's interesting, I want to read something to you from a non-Muslim website, just a website about school bullying. And it says that show minimal reaction to bullying. Exactly the technique of the Prophet ﷺ. So do not show bullies that you feel hurt if they do something that makes you uncomfortable. Just walk off. Because it says the bully gets satisfaction from knowing they made you feel uncomfortable. Don't show them you became uncomfortable. And okay, this is not fun. The bully wants to see a reaction from you. And this is not fun, so they stop. And it's interesting that they say, you cannot talk sense to an irrational person. Then they say, walk away with dignity. Exactly what we were saying. Izzah. Walk away with dignity. Okay? And the third thing is we already spoke about is having this feeling of being honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this feeling of izzah. And it's not pride, by the way, because pride in Islam, it's not a very good thing. But izzah is different. It's the feeling of dignity and honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you a Muslim. So sometimes, even if you're weak, you show strength and you show signs of strength, even if you're weak. And you surprise that oppressor, you surprise that bully. True story, there was this old lady, this is in America. It's not a Muslim or anything, just this old lady. And she lived in a very dangerous neighborhood. And a lot of old ladies were mugged constantly. Young men would come and grab their wallet and put a knife to their head or whatever and take a wallet from them. So she says, I was walking down the street, and it was like a dark street at night, and I saw a young man who's kind of hiding in the front there in an alleyway, and I just knew he was going to mug me. She had been mugged before. She knew what it looked like. So this young man had a hoodie, covered everything, concealed his identity and everything, and he's waiting for her. She could see that he's just waiting for her. When she gets close, he's going to jump up and grab her handbag from her. So she said, I knew it, and I prepared for him. And she said, when I got really close, I could see him physically preparing now to jump at me. She said, when I got really close, just before he jumped at me, I looked him dead in the eye, and she said, hey, don't I know your mother? And he immediately jumped back. So now it's different. Now maybe I'm mugging auntie or something now. A friend of my mother, maybe she changed my diaper or something. Now I'm going to mug her like that. So she just looked him right in the eye. She said, hey, don't I know your mother? And he was taken aback. I don't know. He just walked away. Sometimes even a weak person can do something strong and show that they're not going to be pushed around, and they won't be pushed around. And you know something? In the last 2 minutes, like sometimes some governments, they will purposely test to see how much they can push around the Muslims. This happened, maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, and I'm not going to mention the country, but they purposely put an insult in the newspaper. Actually, this happened in 2 countries about the same time. They purposely put an insult in the newspaper about the Prophet ﷺ. So they put this insult to see next day how will people react to this insult. If people get angry, and they start to write and complain and become vocal, then they know that Islam is still strong in the hearts of these people, and we can't bully them about. Not yet. We can't push them around. And if nobody says a single word, these people are ready. We can push them around. We can do whatever we want with them. And going back to civil rights, the same thing was done in the United States. So in the beginning, after 9/11, the government didn't know how far they could go bullying the Muslims. So they did a series of tests. First, they shut down one of the largest Islamic relief organizations. And when they shut it down, they waited and watched. And few people opened their mouth. So they said, that's the green light. We can shut down anyone we want. And they shut down so many, one after the other, after that. Then they arrested one of the Muslim leaders, civil rights leaders, let's say. And they waited to see if the community will react. And nobody said a word. What was that to them? The green light. We can bully these people now. And after that, they put leader after leader, sheikh after sheikh in jail. And so on and so forth. So, people bully you, you accept it, and it's going to be a spiral, just never ending. It's going to continue. And you stand up and you feel the dignity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you Muslims. I'm here to guide you. How am I going to allow you to push me around? So with that then, we've come 55 seconds to the conclusion of the talk. Jazakumullahu khairan for your attentive listening. Wa sallallahu wa baraka ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.